I think we're basically good to get started here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to share my screen. Um, a few things quickly about myself. Some of you have taken my classes before, and so on. Some of you haven't. My name is Alexander Kraft. I'm one of the lead instructors here at CyberWarrior. When I'm not teaching for CyberWarrior, I work as an enterprise architect and for cloud migrations, basically taking like um, cloud applications and or applications that preside in on-premise data centers and move them into the cloud. And I deal with a lot of the security implications for those kinds of things. Um, we've talked a lot in a lot of different courses in CyberWarrior about all the different things we must know or have to learn to work in cybersecurity. And CyberWarrior also likes to get everybody prepared for actually landing a job in cybersecurity. So it's one thing to like talk and teach about all the things that you have to know, but there are some nuances and things that will actually help you actually in a job hunt after you feel like you've learned a commensurate amount of knowledge. So that's what this masterclass is going to be focused on, okay? So the agenda for landing a job in cybersecurity field, these are the subtopics that are actually going to be delved into. Obviously, why do we want to get into cybersecurity? You're all here and interested, so we'll cover that though. What can you do with cybersecurity? What are the different job roles that are available for you even to do? A lot of people find it interesting that there's a lot of jobs that they don't even know exist. That is something that could relatively easily migrate into. How do I land a job in cybersecurity? And what do you do once you land the job? And then we'll talk about some final things and open the floor up for some questions. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is why to get into cybersecurity. The basic premise here is you have to ask yourself some questions. Cybersecurity, we all kind of know what it is at this point, but for those of you that don't know, we'll cover that in just a second. Second question is why cybersecurity is so important. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important, what are the different aspects of it, and so on. Why so many people are choosing to study cybersecurity. And there's some kind of like personal reasons, and then there's also some market reasons to kind of support this. And then the yearly global cybersecurity spending and stuff like that. And then the worldwide loss from cybercrime or some of those statistics to kind of support that idea. Okay. So the first thing is what is cybersecurity? According to CISA, which is a government agency, cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency to be specific. It's basically just the art, and they say art, although I wouldn't. I guess it depends on how you classify that, but the art of protecting networks devices from unauthorized access. Basically, anything that does ones and zeros, we want to make sure that is only going to the people that need to or want to see them, and trying to deny access from any criminal activity that is going there in general. You can kind of base cybersecurity or just summarize it into some NIST documentation that is available. And basically, they say that it all surrounds around something called the CIA triad. Anything that is trying to protect the confidentiality, that is the secrecy of data being transmitted from one place to another or just being held there, the integrity of that information so that it is not altered in a way that we wouldn't want it to be before it either is accessed by the people that want to get it or sending it to another location before they receive it. And then availability is the systems that we actually need to utilize every day, or whatever system a business needs to utilize. Think of Amazon as an e-commerce platform, has to have their web servers running at all times. They need to maintain the availability of those systems because time is money, as the maxim goes. Okay, so why is cybersecurity so important? Outside of just this confidentiality, integrity, and availability, there's really two major reasons why it's so important. Our identities are constantly being shifted more online. If you'll remember back into the 90s, when websites, the .com boom really started to get going, a lot of websites really just used a username and password and things of that nature, and that's all you really needed. And every website had a different username and password. It wasn't that important. But nowadays, everything is integrated into what we call federation services, which means that you have your email address is a big key there. Your email address is basically like your social security number in a lot of ways, where it identifies you across 30 or 40 different platforms now. And if that one thing is compromised, your identity is compromised, and anybody can act like you and on behalf of you to do a number of different things. This is extremely dangerous because as we shift more into digitalizing these kind of things, we're faced with kind of identity theft, fraud, and even financial troubles for those kind of things. In addition to that, social media. I don't stick too much on this point, but I guess somebody could just take your identity to like post weird things on social media, although I don't see that as the biggest problem ever, especially if you don't use it. And then the second thing is what we eat and clothe ourselves with is managed by supply chains, and every supply chain in every organization, and that's right, I said every, is utilizing some type of information technology nowadays. There is not a single industry out there that does not use a computer, that is not hooked up to a network, that is not hooked up to the internet some way. There's no way around it, really. We usually call this kind of stuff for industrial purposes OT, or operational technology, and it's not as hardly connected as information technology is. But the point is that everything is migrating to having IP addresses or local addresses that something can communicate with and something can corrupt. Since that's the case, everything in our digital age, as it's been, the moniker has been assigned to it, is run on information technology, and that all has to be protected. Why do cyber attacks occur? There's a few different reasons, and you can get into the gravity of each one of those individually. But basically, it's always about money or something political. It really boils down to those two things. Uh, Most companies, when they're small and stuff like that, or large companies, you'd be surprised how many become pretty negligent when it comes to the addition of cybersecurity measures in this kind of new evolving age of technology and cyber threats. Just recently, there was, over the last 5 years, let's say, there's been hundreds of major attacks. Most recent memory, Coca-Cola got attacked, Nestle got attacked, Colonial Pipeline got attacked. These are some very major corporations, some of them operating since even into the 1800s, actually. Some of them have been operating since then with no major incidents as impactful as these events have been. So it's pretty crazy. Some of the organizations are trying to kind of avoid using cybersecurity or investing money into cybersecurity, saying, well, um, you know, they can't be that big of a threat, but the threats and the attacks that are happening on those organizations, specifically things like crypto malware now, are becoming so detrimental and so damaging that it just can't be avoided anymore. You can't not pay attention to it, or it's going to infect everything and it's going to break everything. You can see like the MGM Studios attack for this kind of example. They really couldn't ignore, and they were ignoring a lot of their cybersecurity measures. And then the most recent, although it wasn't a cybersecurity attack necessarily, CrowdStrike, kind of foregoing a little bit of processes, bringing down a really large chunk, about 5% of all infrastructure that was running at the time, which is pretty crazy. So why do so many people study cybersecurity? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. Some of the most popular reasons are it's obviously there's a lot of demand for cybersecurity roles right now. Organizations are basically kind of the primary problem is that everything is growing. IT infrastructure is growing at an exponential rate, but the growth of people in cybersecurity is not growing fast enough along with it, right? So there's more systems being deployed and sold and used than there are people that actually are educated enough to protect them effectively, right? So that's kind of the idea. Technical skill gaps, as we refer to them, are very common in things like risk assessment, assurance audits, and things of this nature. A lot of people don't know how to properly protect their systems. So additionally, they have some metrics on this subject that's saying 26% of cyber firms report that they're lacking technical skills and non-technical skills in general, just to like basically have the bare minimum that they need to deal with the amount of people's problems that are coming at them, right? There's a large range of job opportunities. It's very it's kind of I wouldn't say normal, but it's very obvious at this point that there's a lot of different career fields in cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity has such a large range of career fields. It actually seems to be a problem in and of itself. I started out in IT, a long time ago, and it really wasn't that many jobs you could really do. You could either be a client systems person, you could be a server admin, you could be a network engineer, and you could do some like IT or like Internet of Things stuff, or you could work on phone switches. Those were kind of like your only pathways. Cybersecurity hadn't really gotten off the ground in the way that it is now. But now we have 50 different jobs for 50 different roles that are being practiced, right? So this is something that we'll talk about some of those different roles as well. And then we obviously have a high job satisfaction. Job satisfaction rates are above 76% of cybersecurity practitioners. That means they actually really enjoy doing the job of cybersecurity. That means that they really the highest peaks have actually gone to 79% according to some metrics I have here. So that's an extremely high approval rate for any job. I can't really think of any job that actually has a higher one, unless maybe it's probably like driving race cars or something like that has a pretty high thing. But that's the idea. It's really high for like an operational job. Has very good job security. These systems are not going anywhere, and they're not getting any better at protecting themselves with AI. They'll talk a lot about AI taking over everything, but I'll tell you that it's not anywhere close to being able to take over the main lion's share of the work. It's really not. AI is able to augment and help with a lot of things, but the problem is so many of these devices that sit on our network, servers, switches, routers, all that kind of stuff, it stems from different platforms. Your router might be Cisco, or your switch might be Juniper, and then your server might be a Dell, or it might be a Cisco. You have no idea. There's too many different things, and AI is not yet ready to do that or deal with these kind of differences. Not even to get into the software differences of 500 different publishers running on 500 different versions of everything. There's nothing that can really differentiate or integrate that well into all of that stuff. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon, is the point. And then the lower need for a degree. Before cybersecurity, you usually had to have a bachelor's degree and all these kind of stuff. But the threshold for getting good qualified people into cybersecurity is lowering dramatically in recent years. Now, I'm not going to down anybody that has a degree in cybersecurity. It definitely is helpful. Of course, if you have one, it gives you a lot of knowledge that you really can't get anywhere else in the same format, at least, right? But a lot of cybersecurity and IT in general kind of benefit from this thing that no other career field really benefits from, is that we see accreditation through certifications and experience more than anything else. So degrees are not necessarily needed a lot of the times. A lot of the roles that I've worked in the past don't need degrees at all. They just want a certification and a certain level of experience or knowledge, and that's all you need. So this is all really good stuff. Here's some metrics on the cybersecurity spending globally. This might look like a lot, but you'll wait till you see the next metric that we show you. But the first metric here is in 2023, the cybersecurity spending reached about $80 billion worldwide. So that means you could see a slow uptick in cybersecurity spending over the years, and it's going to follow along this trend. And you can see that like conferences like Black Hat have the most turnout that they've ever had repeatedly every single year. So like a lot of these things are just going to scale probably exponentially in the next coming years. As you can see, it kind of gains speed as it goes on. The forecast suggests that we will be getting to like $87 billion this year, which is an extremely large growth year, right? That sounds like a lot of money, but if you take it into consideration with the amount of losses that we see, cybercrime losses went up to $12.5 billion in 2023. So yeah, so just as fast as the spending is growing for things, this cybercrime is getting more and more. And you would think that that sounds counterintuitive. The more we spend on it, the more people should stop losing money, but that's not the case. The more people that are defending networks, the more people that are trying to break into them. It seems to just be a weird trend like that. There's no real explanation, but there's just a lot of people that are willing to not go on the right side of things. So this is estimated to grow another 7 or 10% over the next couple of years, about $2 billion per year, and that trend doesn't seem to be going anywhere coming up in the next few years, which is interesting. So the next section we're going to talk about is what can you do in cybersecurity. We're going to delve into some of the exact roles that are available in cybersecurity. And this is by no means a comprehensive full list, but these are some of the more common roles that you might see. So here are some, they say entry level roles, and the salaries that they have are averages. So you have to remember that if you are going for an entry level role, it may not be the exact same salary. That's an average taken from the lowest and the highest together, right? So the first one is an information security analyst. We call this a lot of times, we call them a SOC analyst or security operations center analyst. You might see that job published in that way, right? Security analysts, um, they're responsible for things like monitoring the networks, monitoring seams, reading through logs and alerts, developing strategies to better secure an environment after finding weaknesses, scanning your own network for vulnerabilities and things of that nature. Some of the certifications that go along with this are things like CompTIA's Security Plus or Sec Plus, which we teach here at CyberWarrior. It's a good gateway certification into a lot of different certifications. I would say that basically almost no, I've never met really any serious cybersecurity professionals that have not taken this test or had this certification at one point or another. When I first got into cybersecurity, this was the first test that they made me take. So this is definitely a very good and respected certification as an entry role, right? Almost nobody will look at you very seriously without at least something like Network Plus, Security Plus, or so on, right? They're kind of a staple for entry, right? Or a gateway certification, if you'd like to call it that. So information security analysts, a lot of people, and this is probably the lion's share of a lot of security jobs, they fall under this kind of umbrella title. The amount of things that you'll be doing as an information security analyst or SOC analyst will be extremely varied. They are very different roles depending on where you're working. They'll have you do more compliance or more operational things. It really is just dependent on where you work in that situation, right? And then we have information security specialists. Information security specialist, this a lot of times actually shows up as a government role, and it has a lot more to do with uh, dealing with protective measures on a network rather than just trying to find people breaking in. So these people will test and maintain firewall configurations and antivirus software, also known as like EPO in a lot of situations, called e-policy orchestrator. That falls into the purview of an information security specialist, researching new risks and vulnerabilities and things like that that are coming out. And then some of the common certifications that you find with these kind of things are a little bit more advanced. Obviously, Sec Plus falls in there as well. But you have things like there's some GX certifications for it, but one of them is SSCP. This is a ISC2 certification. So that's the information. I'm always bad at getting this one. Let's say I think it's the Information System Security Consortium. I want to say that that's right. So it's a very respected organization and so on. That's where the CISP, it's the same organization that has the CISP, and they offer that certification. So there's that as well. Some of the roles that actually kind of feed into this one, if you ever want to do this, is working like risk analysis. Being a information security analyst can oftentimes lead into this depending on what your work is, or doing some kind of IT support or engineering role can lead into this as well. We do have digital forensics examiners. This is, I'll be upfront, it is not one of the more, it's not one of the more available jobs, right? It's a little bit more difficult to do this kind of line of work because it's very niche, right? It's very specified. A lot of people really enjoy these jobs because it's basically just trying to solve puzzles and trying to figure out, kind of trace people step backwards. You see a lot of these work in compliance, and they also work in law enforcement. In the county that I used to live in, they actually have their own dedicated forensics examiner office for just cybercrime in general. So it's catching a lot of cyber crimes, whether that's financial fraud or other things like that, right? So if you do like solving puzzles or trying to find tracing steps, digital forensics is a really good way to do that. Your whole responsibilities will be like collecting, preserving, and analyzing different digital evidence, recovering data that people have basically tried to destroy. That's a big part of it, because usually when people get caught and they know they're caught, most of the times people that hack, they usually know when they got caught before they actually get arrested. So they try to destroy as much of the evidence as they can before that happens. So that's something as well. And then obviously chain of custody, documenting findings and things like that, so it can be assessed in a court of law later on. Like I said, it doesn't really relate exactly to any other job. Usually you have to go to some kind of specialized training for this, but cyber forensics, digital forensics analysis. The most common thing that I can say that feeds into this role is like a precursor is probably like incident response, like an incident response analyst or something like that, because they deal a lot with preservation of artifacts and evidence and stuff like that. So you see sometimes people that used to work in incident response do go on to work in forensics and things like that, right? And then the last thing we have is a more common role, I would say, to have, because there's a lot of people that need this role. It's an IT auditor. There are a lot of regulatory compliances out there. The most famous ones that you'll probably run into is SOC. You'll have HIPAA, and then PCI DSS. There's a lot of other ones, but these are the most common ones that get audited. So basically, the whole job of an IT auditor is to focus on these regulatory frameworks and make sure that the guidance that these regulatory frameworks have, that you basically fit your environment to it. Some things like SIEMs like Wazza or Splunk already have an integrated portion of their system that can cross-reference the kind of information it's gathering to whether it's in compliance with these type of frameworks as well. Some of the certifications for this would basically all come from either GIAC or ISC2, but one of the most common ones is certified CIA, certified internal auditor, or CISA, certified information systems auditor. This is, again, is kind of its own area. Some people go into more technical implementations of jobs, and this is more of an administrative implementation, although it doesn't mean you don't have to know what you're doing. You do. It just focuses more on that. This is, I would say, a more common job. A lot of things are looking for people with understanding of that. You said what would some job titles directly related to penetration testing, and if any additional certs would be useful? Yeah, that's a good question. I'll find it. I don't have it readily available because I wasn't going to talk about certifications too much, but I do have a really good resource. Maybe Isaac, you remember what I'm talking about. It's this website that has a list of all the certifications and their domains. I'll try and find it. I don't pull it up super often, but I'll try and find it for you. But I basically have one that'll break down the certs. Maybe if I have time at the end of the course, I'll show. If I can, I'll just send it directly to you or something like that. But yeah, some of the job titles that directly go to penetration testing can be auditing as well. But a lot of the times it is just like red team analyst or something like that. Most of the times it's called offensive security analyst or something to that effect, offensive security specialist. That's most of the time what it is. Yeah, I think that is it actually. Yep, that's perfect. I don't know how you found that so fast, but yeah. So this is the list that I was talking about, and we put that in the chat so you have it. The way to read this list is to kind of see what it says at the top. So it says where the certifications kind of lie, whether you want to be more in the engineering side, more on the security operations, whether it's red team or blue team. And then if you want to do security and risk management, kind of those IT auditing roles we were talking about, a lot of that stuff is in the middle, or just general stuff will fall under, some of these categories. So if you're interested in what certifications go down what career path, this is a really good resource that this guy maintains that I really think you should look at, right? So going on the penetration testing side, one of the most famous ones, although not one of the most recognized, is certified ethical hacker at CEH, probably in this one. I don't see it here, but that's one of the most popular ones. But there's a lot of other. They kind of changed just a little bit, so now it's only acronyms. So there's CEH right there. So that's EC Council. We used to actually teach that at CyberWarrior, but it kind of fell off as a recognized certification. But this is one of the best ones right here. Offensive Security Certified Professional, OSCP. This is one of the best ones that you can really get. Yeah, it's a very expensive certification, but OSCP is a very is one of the best ones that you can get for pen testing and stuff. But there also are some CompTIA ones like Pen Test Plus that is also really good, and that is something that we do teach at CyberWarrior and so on. So there are some really good ones all in here. Okay. Okay. So that's some of the roles that we talked about. There's a lot of good ones. I got another question. Hold on. It was privately sent. So if you're really looking without much, I would say like one of the fastest ways you're going to get into cybersecurity, if you really like don't have a lot of time to learn a bunch of new stuff and so on, is really getting into like IT roles in general and then transitioning internal to a company to a cybersecurity role. That's one of the most successful strategies I've seen people come with. um, that doesn't forego you needing to have some of the same understanding to be successful in cybersecurity, but landing an IT role in general and then migrating to cybersecurity internally is usually one of the higher success rates for people, from what I've seen. Okay. So let's keep going. These are great questions, by the way, though. Really good questions. All right, we're still good on time. So, what kind of cybersecurity jobs are there? Some of the other ones, these are what we call mid to advanced cybersecurity jobs. You have security systems administrator. These can get paid a lot of money. Their basic reason is because they're supposed to have a very advanced technical understanding of a lot of systems. So, what you see is they monitor a lot of systems, they do backups, managing user accounts, and like larger infrastructure and things like that. Yeah, I mean, EC Council, it fell off a little bit. I wouldn't say in credibility, but maybe in popularity. People have just picked up OSCP and other certifications, and CompTIA has come out with some for cheaper. So I think that's kind of why it's gone that way. So that's probably why. Some of the certifications that a security systems administrator does is you need like a CISP or a CISM. These are very general. Going kind of back to that list that we were seeing, you'll see that CISP kind of falls here. It's kind of weird because this actually changed, but CISP, realistically, if you could imagine a line that goes across this entire thing, is basically what CISP is. CISP is, how they say it, a mile long and an inch deep. It covers a lot of topics, but not that in depth on any individual topic. So it's kind of like a catch-all certification for cybersecurity. You said certain cybersecurity certifications be obsolete? Not really. I mean, none of them are obsolete. I would just say it depends on like who's looking at your resume. Oftentimes, people that have a CEH and are really proud of it will see it as a really good thing. People that have something that's competing with the CEH will see it like, oh, you got a CEH, but you don't have what I have. It's kind of just a cat and mouse game. EC Council is by no means like a bad organization. They are very respected. I'm just saying from personal experience, things like OSCP, because it's the same price as um, certified ethical hacker, may get you a little bit more bang for your buck. No, CH is by no means a bad certification, and it's relatively difficult too. So it's not a cakewalk either. So that's just something to think about. And then you have penetration tester. Penetration tester is something like we were talking about. Pamela, you asked. This is one of the job titles that you'll find. Um, like I said, offensive security or penetration tester is what we'll see. Pen Test Plus, it's a little bit more of a niche job, but you have things like CEH, you have Pen Test Plus, and you have GIAC certified pen tester. GIAC is one of those certification companies that have really come out and shined a little bit more recently. They're kind of getting more market share for certifications, and people like their certifications and things like that. So it's a up and growing one for sure. We have security engineer. This is more kind of like what I do in a way. Security engineering, you're supposed to like develop security best practices, implement security controls, test things, incident response, and a lot of different things. So you work with a lot of infrastructure and a lot of systems to make sure that systems are secure in the configurations on those systems are right in kind of scanning those against the right things. So that's kind of the idea of them. Security architect is the next one up. Now, this is where you really get, you can see the salary jumps quite a large amount. A lot of the times security architects really are migrating more to the cloud. Like these roles are just migrating a lot more to the cloud. You'll still find some on-premise ones for sure. Most of the on-premise ones will be probably more Cisco certification centric. A lot of on-premise infrastructure still works on Cisco stuff. So there's a lot of Cisco certifications. I don't know if they show up in this list. I know some of them do. Yeah, so like network security. Yeah, so CCNP, certified network professional. There's another sub thing there, and then like this one, Cisco certified implementation expert security. They will get you probably even above this salary, but those tests are very hard and they take years and years of practice. So just keep that in mind. Security architect is definitely on the road though going forward, but you need some pretty advanced certifications and knowledge to get to that stuff. Working in either Cisco specific products you can get there, or working in a cloud provider like Azure, AWS, or GCP can also get you there. And then we have cryptography engineers. Cryptography engineers is one of those very niche things, but man, have I seen those people get paid a lot of money. It's basically because not a lot of people do it. And some of the certifications, like EC Council Certified Encryption Specialist, are extremely difficult. But if you're really passionate about cryptography, if you like cryptographic things, signatures, encryption, tunneling, all that good stuff, these people make a lot of money because there's so few of them. So this is obviously something that you could really get into and do well in. And then we have cybersecurity manager. Just like there are cybersecurity engineers, there are people that are specific for managing stuff. A lot of the people that do this role have things like CISP, which is, like I said, it's an inch deep and a mile long. So you have a very basic understanding of so many different facets of things, but maybe not that much of an advanced understanding. And then you have other certifications like PMP, project manager, professional. That's a completely unrelated certification. And then you have ITIL and things of that nature, because they kind of all feed into being a cybersecurity manager. Usually they want you to have some kind of operational experience in cybersecurity management. So this isn't something you can usually just jump into without some kind of relevant experience. But you could probably start at a lower salary with less responsibilities and work your way up that way as well. Okay, so now the question everybody wanted to actually get to is, how do I land a job in cybersecurity? This is a really important question, and I want to take some time to answer it, right? So we're going to answer these following questions. What skills do you need to actually jump into cybersecurity? What are soft skills? What soft skills are needed in cybersecurity? Where can you develop those technical skills? How can you develop some of these soft skills? And then where can you find cybersecurity jobs? How to make your job search easier, and how to make your CV, your curriculum vitae, I think is what it stands for, or your resume, or portfolio more attractive, right? All right. So what skills does a cybersecurity professional need? So there's a lot here, but these are some of the main categories of what you'll need to work in cybersecurity. You want to have a good understanding of controls and frameworks. What that means is you need to know how to protect stuff. Like if I say I have a network threat, how do I protect network threats, and what kind of things can I implement to stop a certain network threat? Or if something is like crypto malware, how do I prevent crypto malware? Those are what we call controls. Those are things I can implement to stop a certain type of attack. That's more of a general understanding of stuff. And we talk a lot about it in CyberWarrior, what you can implement to combat what type of offensive tactic. So that's what that means. Now, NIST and Cybersecurity Exchange and things like that have a lot of information about hardening your system and what you can implement settings wise to stop things. But knowing the controls is just some kind of knowledge you'll have to accumulate over time, right? Scripting is another one. I cannot tell you how much I do scripting on a day-to-day basis. There's not probably a week I actually go that I'm not in PowerShell doing some kind of scripting mechanism. Most things in cybersecurity are done via scripting. They're done via playbooks. They're done via automated systems that that you have to know. So some of the most common languages that you may see, PowerShell is one of the ones I already talked about. Bash, Python, Ruby, maybe. Having a working understanding of things like JavaScript is not going to hurt anybody either. SQL, all these kind of things are things that could really benefit you. My advice would be to pick one that's for an operating system and pick one that's a general purpose language and learn those. So, like if you want to just focus on Windows systems, learn PowerShell. If you want to just focus on Linux systems, pick Bash. If you want to learn just general use ones, you can use Python, Ruby, Perl, C++, C Sharp, whatever you want to use. It doesn't really matter. They're all general use case languages. You can pick literally any one of them that you want that you think is popular and just go with that. An example of that is most things in the DoD are actually migrating from C++ to Rust now. So Rust would really not be a bad thing to learn, in general, right? Yeah, PowerShell is amazing, as Eduardo says here. Yeah, and Python is really great for starters as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can jump into. But these are some of my recommendations for the ones you should kind of know in general, right? Okay, and then we have intrusion detection. There's a lot of different intrusion detection systems out there, but luckily there's ones that are available for everybody that you can set up on your own. One of the most popular ones for open source is something called Zeek, and this will give you a lot of good understanding setting this up in your own environment for like working on more complex systems. Okay, because a lot of businesses use Zeek, but I mean it's not as common as some other ones, but this is something that you can set up and use for free. You said new roles are requesting Go. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Go or Golang. Um, a lot of things are requesting Go. Go is kind of very similar to Python. It's very easy syntax, and it's actually developed by Google, I believe. I think that's why they call it Golang. But yeah, it's very, very good. I agree. And then we have operating systems, understanding how an operating systems work. Now, I'm kind of differ from like a lot of what a lot of people would say about this. You really want to focus on one or the other. Starting out, you can know some about Linux. Linux is good to know about, right? A lot of systems run on Linux. I would say even a majority of enterprise systems run on some kind of Linux. And then there's Windows, obviously, and then there's iOS, which is like MacBooks and things of that nature. You should really pick one to extremely focus on, like understand how it works, what sysinternals is, what the System32 folder is, all this kind of stuff, what a registry is, how do I get all this stuff. You should focus on that. Or you could focus on Linux and you can learn what daemons are and how a ZFS works and how mounting works and all that kind of stuff. But I would really only focus on one or the other and just know some stuff about the original. Yeah, how Etsy works. Why are there different file paths that are all over the place? Why there's so many different ones, whereas in Windows it's all located in one location. I would just focus on one as your primary and just learn some rudimentary or fundamental stuff about the second one. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, whether you pick Windows or pick Linux first. Just try to focus on just one because you'll really mess yourself up trying to learn both simultaneously. They're very different. Okay. And then there's network security controls. Like we talked about before, we talked about controls and frameworks, right? We need to learn about network security controls. So how do firewalls work, right? How do firewalls work? How does intrusion protection systems work? How does hashing work? That's like signatures and things like that. How do all these fundamental concepts work? How do we implement these and the different varieties of these also? Because firewalls is not just one thing, it's like a billion different things under that one term. So a lot of these things have to be understood to really be successful. So these are just some of the things that are really good to know. And there's a lot of different network security controls out there. And the best way that I always break it down to all my students in my classes is you have your 7-layer process with the OSI model, right? Every control kind of corresponds to a specific layer in this communication. So kind of breaking it down by what physical controls are there, what layer 2 controls are there, what 3 controls are there, and go on that way. And then it'll make it a lot easier to break down like what is the difference between TLS and what is the difference between VPN. They kind of do the exact same thing, but they just work at different layers. So that's just like what my recommendation is: go through every layer and assign security controls to a specific layer of the OSI model or the TCP/IP model, whichever one you like to work with, right? That's the idea I would say. Okay, so these are some of the skills that you need, right? The last 5 skills that you'll need is cloud security. Again, I would focus on one of them, either going for AWS, Azure, GCP. And if you always hear that these are the only ones, there's not. There's actually Oracle. There's Huawei. I don't know how to spell it really. Is it like that? Yeah, something like that. Huawei. There's a lot of different clouds out there. The main 3 are right here, though. And these are the ones that I would recommend you focus on. There is a lot of free resources out there that all 3 of these want you to focus in on and use. Okay. So just pick one of them. They all have their benefits of learning. So it just really depends on whatever you're interested in. But AWS, Azure, and GCP are all very good and respected. GCP is probably the smallest out of them, but it's it's a funny thing about people that are small at first is they don't end up small later on. So maybe you can get in early on their success, And then you have incident response. Incident response, we have a course about incident response that we teach here at CyberWarrior, but just learning about incident response, categorization, the cyber kill chain, right? Malware analysis, segregation, like containment processes and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different ones. There's actually certifications on incident response. We don't teach any of them necessarily, but we do talk about it in Security Plus and in Pen Test Plus. So that's there. Having threat knowledge. This will come over time. It's not something you'll have right away, but understanding different things. One of the best resources out there for you to like understand what's trending kind of is what we call the OWASP top 10 list. OWASP top 10 stands for the Open, what is it again? It's Open Web Application Security Project. They release a list every single year about the top 10 vulnerabilities posing risk to web applications, which, if you didn't know, is basically every application because most things are web applications, right? So getting familiar with every single one of these, maybe Isaac, you could put the link for the OWASP top 10 in the chat. But I would recommend go here, read the top 10 ones, and really understand how they happen. And make sure you understand a practical example of how each one of those happen, and that'll get you pretty far. And then we have DevOps. DevOps is a little bit more of a technical skill, and it does take a little bit of time to understand because it's very different from probably anything you've learned. But DevOps works in a kind of interesting life cycle. It has to do with pushing changes out to applications and systems while it's still in production. And it's basically a process of how you do this. But I would recommend for this one using Azure, going to Azure's website, going to Microsoft's Learn website and take one of the free courses they have on DevOps. That'll be a really good understanding of how to get things like that, and then learning about how the DevOps processes work. I do talk when I teach a lot about DevOps because it's basically the way most mature cybersecurity models work now. But Azure has some really good resources to like learn initially about DevOps, and I would recommend anybody serious about cybersecurity learns at least some rudimentary things about DevOps. And then you have regulatory guidelines. Like I said, if you really want to just start out learning things like SOC, SOC is not that like large of a framework, so you can like look at a SOC report or look at what the criteria for a SOC report is, and that could just be something you put on your resume initially. It's not even something that there's a certification necessarily for or anything like that. If you can just look at a SOC report, run a SOC report on your own system, for instance, write your own report, you could do stuff like that. And I think there's a program called Vanta. I think this is the right program that you can use to like write SOC reports that some people use as well. It's a paid service, but that's an example of a tool that people use to write SOC reports and so on, right? So yeah, SOC or HIPAA would be where I would start, and just look at exactly when somebody does a HIPAA audit, what are they looking for? What exact criteria are they looking for? It's really data at rest encryption, data in transit encryption, separation of networks, things of that nature is what they're looking for to maintain compliance, right? So what are soft skills? soft skills are non-technical skills that aren't really specific to the type of cybersecurity job you're looking for, but something that a lot of people look for when you go to interview. And some of the soft skills that you'll see are things like teamwork, good communication, and just good interpersonal skills. It's hard to like sum up exactly what you need to do to get there, but a lot of people have more success if they can develop these skills, taking courses on like how to public speak better and do interviews better and so on. So what soft skills is good for a cybersecurity professional? Critical thinking is one that can't really be given or learned exactly, but just try to use critical thinking, evaluate, asking the right questions. For critical thinking, there's something that I've always used in everything that I teach or do. It's called Socratic questioning. Excuse me. Socratic questioning is basically like the way to like critical think. Basically, you take whatever you have and then you ask yourself questions with the information that you have and try to make assertions from the information that you already know. So critical thinking and Socratic questioning go really hand in hand. And if you can master Socratic questioning, you can really master critical thinking because they're basically the same thing. Okay. And then you have communication. Obviously, communication, learn how to speak and write effectively. Most of you probably don't have a problem with this, but if you feel like you struggle with it, I would just take some kind of course. I took a course in college that was on public speaking and so on and learned quite a bit from that. So that's the idea. And then adaptability. Again, you can't really do a lot with this, but if you want to work in cybersecurity in general, you'll have to adapt to changing situations. Don't think that you're going to join cybersecurity and you're going to stop learning at some point. That will never happen. So, I mean, if that's what you were looking for, I really would just find something else, that you don't have to learn too much on. But cybersecurity, there's not a day I have worked in cybersecurity or in IT that I haven't learned something new every single day. And if you don't like that, it's just really not the career field. There's no hard feelings or anything, right? And then we have risk management. Risk management is really good. This is basically just assessing a threat, and just you can just look up things like qualitative versus quantitative. I should have just made that a versus. I'll do this. You can just watch like a small video or read a small article about this to get a good understanding of the differences between quantitative and qualitative risk management. And you can just use that in an interview if it ever comes up. You don't have to have a super advanced understanding just to know what this is, but this is something good to know if it ever comes up in an interview or something like that, right? A lot of cybersecurity uses both of these strategies to actually see where they want to invest their money. And then you have collaboration. Cybersecurity is a team sport. If you didn't know that it is, you'll be working with a lot of different people. So getting just good at working on a team or just making friends that are interested in cybersecurity is probably a really good thing. And then just doing things, testing your own environment between each other or joining a community like CyberWarrior that enjoys just cybersecurity things in general is probably in your best interest. Okay. Where can you develop these? I already talked about a little bit that you can take some online classes. You could look up some of the information I gave you, like the Azure DevOps stuff or the quantitative versus qualitative. Stay up to date with the latest cybersecurity trends. There is so many different organizations out there that will help you stay up to date. Just honestly, what I would do is I would just add three cybersecurity news articles or like organizations to your feed on whatever you use, like LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever you like. And then just read at least one or two articles every week about what's the new trending thing. If you do that, you're going to find yourself very educated on what's going on without much effort, just a little bit at a time, right? And then obviously get certified, get some kind of certification. Like I said, Security Plus, Network Plus, Pen Test Plus, CEH, CCNA, and things like that are some of the best options for beginners in cybersecurity. That's what Indeed reports, at least. That's what I would agree with that, though. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to them. I would agree with that. How can you develop some of your soft skills? Like we said, But I kind of already told you, I think this is a replicate slide. Yeah, so that was a replicate. That's my bad. I went back. Where can you find cybersecurity jobs? There's a lot of different job postings, but these are probably going to be some of your best bet. Like you have Indeed, everybody knows about that. ZipRecruiter's not bad. LinkedIn, at least in my experience, has been one of the best resources for finding jobs in IT and cybersecurity. You'll find a lot better luck with these kind of with LinkedIn and growing your LinkedIn network. The good thing about LinkedIn is it puts your name across a lot of people's screens, and that's really what you want. The things with ZipRecruiter and Indeed is it's really only recruiters that go on there looking for things that match words. Whereas LinkedIn, every time you're added to somebody and you like something, you comment something, it'll show that to somebody else's connections. It'll put that on their page and show it to their connections. So just adding like 50 people will get you 500 more people to look at your name, which is, I really can't tell you how good that is. So I would really make a point on while you're with CyberWarrior or while this is one of the first things that you need to do is make a LinkedIn profile and make it look professional, right? Make it look good, and all that kind of good stuff. And job hunting on LinkedIn is also really good. And then CyberWarrior as well. CyberWarrior does personally try and help you guys find a job. We do courses like this. We do resume writing things. We do things to help you get your job search started and even some leads. Some of them get posted on the website as well. Yeah, there's a LinkedIn profile. I would add all of each other. You could also add me if you'd like. I have a lot of recruiters. A majority of the people on my page are actually recruiters. I do that on purpose, and so on, right? Okay. And then we finally have how to make your job search easier. You could build your own home lab, and I'll go through each one of these and I'll tell you which ones I think are the best, but you can build your own home lab and portfolio. And what this means by portfolio is it really means you want GitHub, right? Uh, Again, if you're interested in cybersecurity, people take you way more seriously if you have a GitHub account, and maybe you don't even have anything published yourself, or maybe you have very little stuff published, but try and make a GitHub account. Try and put some scripts in there that you've written and some README files. People, when I hired some, engineers before for a company I was working for, one of the first things I saw that made one resume stand out from another is one of them had a GitHub account and they had their own scripts in it that they had authored, and that makes a huge difference. It means that they're not afraid to get technical. So somebody really, I recommend that you get a GitHub account and do that. Okay, set up, update, and improve your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, set up an update. You don't have to make a lot of posts on LinkedIn. I would recommend you try to make at least one a month or one, every couple of weeks just to stay relevant so it doesn't look dead. I'm not one of these people that say make 2 posts every day or you're irrelevant. It doesn't really work like that. Make some posts, stay relevant to a certain extent, comment on things, and just be engaged in cybersecurity topics, or you'll find yourself looking like you have nothing to do with cybersecurity. Okay, learn how to network. That just means adding everybody that you find, making friends with everybody you find, and so on. Learning how to sell your skills in your resume is good. Resumes are very difficult. What I would recommend is that you need to really tailor your resume to people, and we'll talk about that in a second. But that's really important as well. And then research and practice how to pass the interviews. And this is something CyberWarrior provides coaching on, so you don't have to go very far to look for that. Now, the best thing that I would say is this one right here. This is number 1. And then this is number 2. You need to build your own lab environments in your own portfolio. If you test on your own stuff, you can show people your environment. You can show people what you've done by yourself, and that looks really good, especially if you have no work experience yet. That is your work experience, doing your own stuff in your own environment, okay? That's really important. The second one is learning how to sell your skills and your abilities on your resume. That is super important as well. And we'll talk about resume in just a second, a little bit more. So how to make your portfolio more attractive, like we said. You want to personalize your resume for each application. This is probably number 1 as well. You want to show, don't tell, right? You just don't want to act like you know. Cover letters, depending on who you're applying for, they will care, they won't care. But the biggest thing is you should have a resume that shows your skills and it should be tailored to the job that you're doing. So your resume should have the static skills of everything that you know how to do. And depending on where you're applying, you should change that section in your skills to match what the job is asking for. Because they don't need to know if you're good at archery if you're going for a cybersecurity job. That's just not relevant, right? So that's the kind of idea behind that. This is the number one thing from all the recruiters that I follow have told me that they need you to personalize your resume for an application, but your resume should be in a way that you don't have to fix the whole thing for every application. You just fix one section and all the other stuff stays static. That's probably the best way to do it. And then tips on making it better looking: value what you're doing, right? Write a GitHub thing, write all that stuff, make your profile picture on LinkedIn look good, right? Organize your thing well. We do resume coaching and they'll talk a little bit more about the formatting of what you should do. Everybody has their own opinion on this, but CyberWarrior has a good coaching thing that we do occasionally about this. And then obviously make it accessible. Have your resume published in LinkedIn. The amount of people that have a LinkedIn account that don't put their resume on their LinkedIn account baffles me. It's just a free thing that people can just grab your resume for free, and you want people grabbing your resume and looking at it, right? And then document and showcase it. All your achievements should be showcased in your resume, but don't make it in a way that's like all in your face, right? Okay, we're at the last section. I know I kind of went a little bit over time, so I'm trying to get there. We'll see if we can make it there, but I think it'll be fine. Okay. So what to do once you land the job? One of the biggest things that you want to do is never stop learning, right? We've talked about this. Cybersecurity is not something that you can just learn and then, that's it. Stay ahead of the curve. And this is by staying up to date on what's the newest stuff, right? And like I said before, focusing on one thing, like one language, one operating system, and so on. That's your best bet to like staying relevant, is you're going to know all the changes and things like that. I'll post my LinkedIn profile here in a second for sure. Okay, attending conferences and seminars in cybersecurity. Black Hat just happened for everybody that didn't know. That's one of the largest cybersecurity conferences of the year. There's a lot of them, but that's one of the bigger ones. So if you can attend those, do attend those. Continue acquiring new and better certs. You should never stop getting certs. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still test almost every year on a new certification that I don't have, regardless if I want to or not. I do it just to try and better my skills, right? And then keep your existing certifications up to date. This is super important. CompTIA Security Plus and every other certification, I think without difference, they all expire. You all have to keep them up to date. You have to pay yearly fees on them. You have to do what are called continuing education units on them, and you have to publish those to the certification profile, or you will drop out of having that certification. I think I got my Security Plus. I got it, I want to say I think, or my A Plus. Let's say my A Plus. I got that in like. Nah, my Security Plus, yeah, it was like 2016. I can't remember what year. It might have been before, but I think 2016, the last time I had to like get, that was like when I had to get it the first time. And I've had that certification since. I've never had to retake it. I've retaken the test a couple of times because I teach it, but I've never had to retake it. Because of that. I just keep it up to date so I don't have to take it again, because I mean, everybody knows how much of a pain that is. Obviously, always continue networking. LinkedIn is one of the best ways to do that right now. Okay. Yeah. And then we have final thoughts. We're going to talk about a couple of things that I just want to make sure everybody kind of understands. The best things that you can do for your job is to gain, this is just Alex speaking here. You want to gain practical skills that you can put on a resume. I know how Zeek works. I know how Wizel works. I know how Splunk works. I know how whatever it is you're interested in, I know how that works. I've written scripts that support my knowledge. Here's my GitHub. Here's, that's what you're going to do. And that's the easiest way to like sell yourself as a valuable asset, is somebody that does stuff when they're not being paid to do it, or not, you know what I mean? I do stuff outside of my work. I have my own lab environment. That's because you should show interest in something, even though, you're not in the company or something yet, right? So that's some of the best things that you can do for yourself. I will put let me stop sharing just for a second here. I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile in here. And like I said, add as many people that are part of my connections as you can that say recruiter in the name. They love that stuff. So they absolutely love it. So I have it right here. Like I said, I have a lot of recruiters in my profile. So here we go. Add all those people if you want to. Here's mine. You can add me, and there's lots of people on my thing. And even if you just look at some of the stuff that pops up from the people that post for me, they're like seriously a lot of people looking like posting about jobs all the time. A lot of them are in like Virginia and things like that. Don't let that discourage you. It's just what it is. There's a lot of jobs in Virginia, so you'll just find that happening. All right. Does anybody have any questions on anything that we covered today? I'll open it up for questions. I know we're over, but I'll stay. I don't mind if you have any questions. I kind of got it down to the wire there. Anybody have anything they'd like to talk about?
I think Dennis is talking, but we can't hear you, Dennis.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Testing, can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit. It sounds like you're really far away or something,
Yeah,
but I can
it's
hear
pretty
you.
low.
This better?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit.
Hi, this is Dennis Camacho, full February 24 cohort, just finished. So wondering if someone could look at the resume that I created. It's the first one I created in cybersecurity and make any recommendations for revisions, please.
Yeah, for sure. You can, if you'd like to, you can send it. You can send it to my email here, and I'll give you a review. I can't do that like right now, but just for time reasons. But I never mind reviewing resumes.
Yeah, happy to email to you. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if I have my template or not. Maybe I can look that up. But yeah, do we have any other questions that anybody like to talk about? I'll just I'll put something here real quick. I'll show you an example of something I was talking about before. I'll show you just a really quick idea of like what a resume kind of looks like. So this is portion of my resume that I wrote like a long. This is actually really outdated, but this is still the same template that I use now. And this is what I mean, where you shouldn't have to change everything about the resume that you do. You should have like a summary of what you want to do, and then you should have like the skills. And this is the most important. Like these three sections right here are the most important. So you don't have to rewrite everything. You should have your skills of what you know how to do. Like I said, this is extremely out of date from now because I wrote this about, I don't know, almost 10 years ago or something. I don't know. And then you have VMware here, SCCM, like, whatever you're good at. In your case, it would be like, Waza, Splunk, and so on. You put your education if you have any like significant education or whatever, and then you put like certifications and so on here. And whatever certifications you have, put the numbers that are associated with those certifications in here as well. Okay, so these are some of the ones you should look to be doing as well. So this is like an idea of what I mean.
Alex, we can't see your screen if you're sharing.
Oh, I didn't share it. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm sorry. So it looks kind of like this. If you put like your summary of qualifications here in just like one location, you want to put like all your information of like what your name is, an email address that's good to contact you at, your phone number and all this kind of stuff. I don't live here anymore, so don't come to my house because that's not where I live. I haven't lived there in quite a long time. So yeah, you put it all here, and then you go down to skills. And like I said, this is the most important section where you want to put skills. You put like what location or like what things you're good at, like systems, that is, like Windows Server. I'm good at this, I'm good at that, whatever the situation or whatever you've been working on in your spare time. You put your education and then put any certifications that you get here. So when you go to modify your resume, this stuff, the only thing you'll have to come in here, and there's another section in here that's called technical expertise. And this is like before I get to the experience. You put whatever platforms you're good at. So Windows Server, I'm good at VMware, I'm good at Azure, I'm good at AWS, whatever. You put that in here. You put the applications that you're good at as well. And these are some of these things are really old on here. Like I said, I wrote this about 10 years ago or something to that effect. And then you put yeah, some experience, and you just change. This is the section that you'll basically have to change. That in your skills section, the only things you'll have to change to like tune a resume to a job application, right? And that's kind of like what I mean. That's probably the best example of that. So all the other stuff is just experience. My general thing with experience is just you should only put like 4 bullets or something like that for every bit of experience that you have. I wouldn't put any more than that. Somebody has their hand up. Go ahead. Is it something in the chat?
Yeah, I asked a question. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yep.
Okay, so I put a question in the chat. I just wanted to know how do you go about preparing your students to pass the certification?
Well, I can't speak for everyone because I mean, CyberWarrior kind of leaves it up to the instructors on like how they would like to teach the certifications. I go through every single practice test and I go through every single performance-based question with my students every time I teach. Some of my colleagues have different ways of doing it, which is perfectly acceptable. That's just my personal preference. So yeah, I mean, I go through every single thing with you. I don't leave anything to chance. The only thing I don't go with you is the final practice test, which is to show you your aptitude for actually passing the real exam, right? So that's kind of like the idea.
So the final practice test is also like a test that you guys give, or is the actual test when we go to the certification center to take the test?
Yeah, so we actually use here at CyberWarrior, we use CompTIA given material. We use this stuff exactly from CompTIA. We don't have our own material for it. We use their stuff because that's the closest to what you'll see on the test is why we do that. So when we do that kind of testing, all the practice tests are straight from CompTIA's question bank. So they're very similar to the questions you'll see on the test. So if you're good at the final practice test that we give from the CompTIA stuff, then you'll see that. Yeah.
Do you keep track of your students through the last classes? How many have actually passed the certifications?
There is ways that we can, yeah, there's basically a management console for the instructors that we can see who's passing what tests and what their likelihood, if you want to call it that, is that they're going to do well or not do well in the test. Yeah.
Okay. I have another question, if it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
How do you guys keep track? Like after the course finish, do you guys keep track of how many students are actually getting the job in the field?
Right. I mean, I keep in contact with a lot of my students personally. Like, I don't know if he's still here, but Albert's actually right here. He's in this group. He was one of my former students. So I mean, yeah, I do personally keep track. All the Discord channels stay up, so a lot of us you can keep messaging us in the Discord channel. So we do know a pretty good amount of these students. I know in my last cohort, I actually helped somebody in an interview. They actually used me as a reference as their instructor, and I talked to and they ended up landing that job. So, so I do keep in pretty close contact with all my former students usually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I put the Bill. I did put my my profile link there. I'll send you that message again though. Try that one right there. Okay, and then we have John Clay said GRC analyst. What's the best way to qualify? There is a certification for GRC. I can't remember the name of it right now because yeah, I can't remember the name of it right now. But there are certifications for GRC. CISP is not a bad one to have for GRC, but it's not exactly specifically for that. What is the other one that is for GRC though? Is that CISA? I think is probably for GRC. Yeah, risk management. I ISACA, this one is probably not a bad one for GRC either. Yeah, there's a few of them out there. Yeah. I can't remember the exact certification for GRC, but CISP is definitely one of them for sure. He said, can you elaborate more on creating the lab environment and scripts, right? So if you just want to go to GitHub, so if you go to GitHub, this is a CyberWarrior one, but you just go to GitHub, you make a profile, just sign up here, sign into this, and then if you want to, you just make a PowerShell script or something. You just make some kind of PowerShell script or whatever you're working on. It could be Bash, PowerShell, Python, whatever you're interested in. Like just make something. You just want to save it, and then you upload it into your GitHub repo. And then you give people, like you put your GitHub link in your resume so everybody can look at all the things, all the scripts that you've authored is what I mean by that. And then the lab environment, you can set up things like one of the easiest ones is Oracle VirtualBox. You can just install Oracle VirtualBox on your own machine, and you could have a bunch of different VMs, and you could set them all up and start experimenting with those VMs. Kali is a really good one to start with because it's got a lot of tools that cybersecurity professionals use, but you can also do like Windows Server, Ubuntu, and all sorts of other stuff. So yeah, these are all really good questions though. It's hard to fit into an hour, but I hope I did my best. If you have any other questions, though, you can always feel free to join us for any of our other courses that we have. And like I said, you can always email me if you have further questions as well at that email address I provided there. And if not, yeah, I hope you all have a good evening, and I hope this has been pretty informative. And yeah, we'll see you next time.